You stood outside my door for 14 seconds before you knocked. 11 the night before. You are deciding whether to leave. I already decided, 3 days ago. Then why are you still here? Because you asked me to stay until you could walk out of this building on your own, and you still can't. Rose Lane was 35 years old the night she kept a stranger alive until dawn on a ward so understaffed she was running triage alone. She found him in the stairwell at 2:47 in the morning, knife wound to the abdomen, pulse thready, no ID. She packed the wound with gauze, called for a crash cart that took 9 minutes to arrive, and talked to him the whole time because she had read somewhere that voices anchor the dying to the living. She told him about the freight trains that used to rattle her windows in deep East Oakland, about the single-wide trailer where she learned to sleep through anything. She told him her name. She did not know that the men who put him there worked for Savannah Spencer, or that Savannah needed him dead before sunrise to take control of an operation worth $40 million in falsified shipping manifests. She did not know that the quiet man bleeding out under her hands was Ildeok Pi, 29 years old, second son of a family that moved cargo through 6 ports across the Pacific Rim. She did not know that by saving him, she had made herself a problem. By morning, he was stable. By noon, Savannah knew the nurse's name. And by the time Rose Lane understood what she had walked into, the only person standing between her and the woman who wanted her erased was the man she had refused to let die. 3 weeks before she found him bleeding in a stairwell, Rose Lane was filling out her 17th incident report of the month. The fluorescent lights in the nursing station buzzed at a frequency that had become so familiar she only noticed it when they stopped. Graveyard shift at Seoul Metropolitan Medical Center, floor 7, cardiology step down. She was 35 years old, 5'6", born in deep East Oakland in a trailer that shook every time the freight trains passed. She had been in Seoul for 14 months. She had been running triage alone for the last 4 hours because Kim had called in sick and the float pool was empty and someone had to do it. The incident report was for a medication error she had caught before it reached the patient. The system required documentation anyway. She wrote in Korean, slowly, her handwriting still careful after a year of practice. The date, the time, the room number, the name of the drug, the name of the nurse who had made the mistake, which was not her, but which she would be asked about anyway because she had been the one to notice. She finished, filed it, checked the clock, 11:23 at night, 9 hours and 37 minutes until her shift ended. The call light for room 714 blinked on. She went. So how did a woman from Oakland end up running nights alone in a Korean cardiac unit? The short answer was a man named David Chen, who had promised her a partnership in a private rehabilitation clinic and then married someone else 4 days before the lease was signed. The longer answer was that Rose Lane had spent most of her adult life building expertise that employers valued exactly until it became inconvenient, and Seoul had been the only place hiring occupational therapists with her specialization at a salary that would cover her student loans. The clinic job fell through. The hospital job did not. She cross-trained into nursing because the hours were better and the paperwork was worse, and she had learned a long time ago that paperwork was the price you paid for being left alone. She was good at being left alone. She had been practicing since the trailer in Oakland, since her mother's night shifts at the cannery, since the years she spent teaching herself to fall asleep to the sound of wheels on rails because it was that or never sleep at all. The patient in 714 needed water. She brought it. The patient in 709 needed reassurance. She provided it. The call light for 702 blinked on and she went there too. And by the time she finished, it was 12:47 and the hallway was quiet and the fluorescent lights were buzzing again, and she had not thought about David Chen in almost 6 minutes. That was when she saw the woman for the first time. Savannah Spencer was standing at the nurse's station, reading something on the computer screen that she should not have had access to. She was tall, blonde, American by the way she held herself, the way she took up space like she had been taught that space was owed to her. She wore a silk blouse that cost more than Rose's monthly rent, and she did not look up when Rose approached. "Can I help you?" "I doubt it." Savannah's voice was flat, pleasant in the way that a closed door is pleasant. "I'm looking for a patient who was transferred here 3 days ago. Cardiac monitoring after a procedure. The name would be under Park. Visiting hours ended at 9. "I'm aware." "Then I can't help you." Savannah looked up. Her eyes were pale blue and very still. She smiled, and the smile did not reach them. "You're the American," she said. "The one who cross-trained. They talk about you. Do they? They say you're good, thorough, that you catch things other people miss." She tilted her head. "That must be exhausting, being that careful all the time." "It's the job." "Is it?" Savannah's smile widened. "I find most people only notice what they're looking for. The rest they let pass. It's easier that way, less complicated." She stepped back from the computer. "The patient I'm looking for isn't on this floor. My mistake. Have a good night, Rose." She had not given her name. Rose watched her walk to the elevator. The doors opened. Savannah stepped inside without looking back. The doors closed. The call light for 714 blinked on again. Rose went. But the name stayed with her. Not Park. The other one. The one Savannah had not said. 3 days later, Rose was restocking the supply closet on the 7th floor when she heard 2 of the orderlies talking in the hallway. One of them was laughing. The American woman came back, the blonde one. Security had to escort her out. What did she want? Same thing as before. The patient in the private wing, the one with the security detail. Which one? The young one. The one who came in with the knife wound. Rose did not stop restocking. She did not turn around. She filed the information away the way she had learned to file everything, in the part of her mind that noticed things other people let pass. The knife wound patient was on the 12th floor, private wing, security detail. Savannah Spencer wanted access to him badly enough to come back twice. Rose did not ask why. It was not her floor. It was not her patient. It was not her problem. 2 weeks later, it became her problem. The night she found him in the stairwell, she was not supposed to be on the 12th floor at all. She had gone up to return a borrowed IV pump to a friend who worked the private wing, and she had taken the stairs because the elevator was slow, and she had learned to take stairs in Oakland when the elevator in her mother's building broke down for the 3rd time in a month. 2:47 in the morning. Stairwell B, 12th floor landing. He was lying face down with his hand pressed to his abdomen and his blood spreading across the concrete in a pattern that told her everything she needed to know about the depth of the wound. She dropped to her knees beside him. She rolled him onto his back. She packed the wound with the gauze from the first aid kit mounted on the wall, and she called for a crash cart that would take 9 minutes to arrive. His eyes were open, dark, focused on her face with a clarity that should not have been possible given how much blood he had lost. "Stay with me," she said. "I need you to stay with me." He did not answer, but he did not look away either. She talked to him because she had read somewhere that voices anchor the dying to the living. She told him about the freight trains. She told him about the trailer with the thin walls and the windows that rattled. She told him her name was Rose Lane and she was 35 years old and she was going to keep him alive until the crash cart arrived if it was the last thing she did. The crash cart took 9 minutes. She kept pressure on the wound for all of them. When the team arrived, she stepped back. They took over. They did not ask her name. She watched them wheel him toward the operating room, and she did not follow because it was not her floor and it was not her patient, and she had already done everything she could do. She went back to the 7th floor. She finished her shift. She filed an incident report for the knife wound patient she had found in stairwell B at 2:47 in the morning. She went home to her apartment in Dongdaemun, the one with the view of the city lights and the rent that was slightly too high, and the silence that was almost enough. She did not know his name until 3 days later. Ildeok Pi, 29 years old. Second son of a family that moved cargo through 6 ports across the Pacific Rim. She learned this from a man in a dark suit who showed up at her apartment at 7 in the morning and asked her, very politely, to come with him. She went. The interrogation room was on the 12th floor of a building in Dongdaemun that she had never noticed before. The man in the dark suit sat across from her at a metal table and asked her to describe exactly what she had seen in the stairwell. She described it. He asked her to describe it again. She described it again. He asked her if she had noticed anyone else in the stairwell before or after she found the patient. She had not. He asked her if she knew a woman named Savannah Spencer. She paused. "I met her once," she said. "At the nurse's station on the 7th floor, she was looking for a patient." "Which patient?" "She said the name was Park, but I don't think that was true." The man in the dark suit wrote something down. He did not look up. Savannah Spencer is an American businesswoman with interest in shipping and logistics. She has been a frequent visitor to Seoul over the past several months. She has also been in contact with several members of the Pi family, including the man you saved in that stairwell. What does that have to do with me? You saved his life. That means she knows your name. That means you are a problem for her. I'm a nurse. I did my job. Yes. The man looked up. His eyes were tired. And that is exactly the problem, he explained, slowly, carefully. The way you explain something to someone who has no frame of reference for the world you are describing. Savannah Spencer had been running a parallel operation inside the Pi family's shipping network. $40 million in falsified manifests. She had been skimming for months. And the only person who had noticed was Ildeok Pi, the second son. The one everyone underestimated because he was quiet and because he managed his moods alone and because his family had always dismissed him as temperamental. He had confronted her. She had sent men to silence him. Rose had found him before they could finish the job. "So what happens now?" Rose asked. "Now," the man said, "you stay close, because Savannah Spencer does not leave loose ends, and right now, you are the loosest end she has." Rose thought about the trailer in Oakland, the freight trains, the windows that rattled all night. She thought about the years she had spent learning to sleep through anything, to notice everything, to survive on her own because no one else was coming to help. "Fine," she said. "Where do I go?" The man in the dark suit told her, and that was how Rose Lane, 35 years old, 5'6", born in deep East Oakland, in a single wide trailer next to the tracks, ended up in a serviced apartment above a Pi family branch office in Shanghai, waiting for a man she had saved to wake up and tell her what to do next. She waited 11 days. On the 12th, he knocked on her door. He was thinner than she remembered. The blood loss had taken something from him that 12 days had not given back. And he stood in her doorway with one hand braced against the frame as though he was not entirely certain of his balance. His other hand held a folder. Manila. Thick. The kind of folder that contained information you did not want to exist. "You should be in bed," Rose said. "I should be dead." His voice was quieter than she expected. Lower. "I'm told you are the reason I am not. I did my job." "Your job was on the 7th floor, cardiology step down. You were returning an IV pump to a friend on the 12th floor when you found me. You took the stairs because the elevator in your mother's building broke down 3 times in 1 month when you were 14, and you have not trusted elevators since." Rose did not move. She did not speak. "I have been awake for 6 days," Ildeok Pi said. "I have spent most of them reading everything there is to read about you. Your employment records, your rental history, your student loan payments, which you have never missed, your incident reports, of which there are 247 in the past 14 months, an average of nearly 18 per month, which suggests either that your hospital has an unusual number of problems or that you notice problems other people do not see? Both. Yes. He stepped inside without asking permission. His movement was careful, deliberate, the kind of care that comes from knowing exactly how much a body can bear before it fails. I know what you did for me in that stairwell. I know you talked to me for 9 minutes about freight trains and a trailer in Oakland and your mother's night shifts at a cannery. I know you told me your name. You were dying. Voices help. They do. He set the folder on the table. I am told that Savannah Spencer sent 2 men to your hospital the morning after I was stabilized. They arrived at 6:14. They asked for you by name at the nursing station. They left when they learned you had already been moved. Rose felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear exactly, more like the recognition of a shape she had been expecting to see. Moved by whom? My family. My brother's people, to be precise. He learned what you had done before I woke, and he made the decision to bring you here without consulting me. Ildeok's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He does not consult me about most things. Your brother, the elder son, the one who will inherit. He said it flatly, without bitterness, the way you state a fact that has long since stopped hurting. He believed you would be useful as leverage, a witness who could testify to Savannah's involvement in my injury. He did not consider that bringing you here without your consent might be a problem. Is it? Yes. Ildeok looked at her directly. His eyes were dark and very still, and there was something in them that reminded her of the moment in the stairwell when he had focused on her face with a clarity that should not have been possible. You saved my life. That means I owe you a debt that cannot be repaid with money or protection or an apartment above a branch office. It means I owe you the truth. He opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Shipping manifests, bank statements with account numbers redacted. A timeline that stretched back 14 months to exactly the week Rose had arrived in Seoul. Savannah Spencer has been stealing from my family for the past 2 years, Ildeok said. $40 million, siphoned through falsified cargo declarations across 6 ports. I noticed the discrepancy 7 months ago. I spent the next 5 months documenting it. I confronted her 3 days before she sent men to kill me. Why didn't you tell your family? I did. His voice did not change. My brother said I was seeing patterns that were not there, that I was being paranoid, that my temperament made me unreliable as a witness. Rose understood something then. Something about the way he held himself. The way he spoke in precise numbers and careful facts. The way he had read everything about her as though information was the only currency he could trust. Your temperament, she said quietly. My family calls it that, the episodes. The days when I do not sleep, and the days when I cannot get out of bed, and the days when I see connections that other people miss because I'm paying attention in ways that other people cannot sustain. He met her eyes. I do not take medication. I manage it alone. Because if they knew the name for it, they would declare me unfit for any responsibility at all. It was the most honest thing anyone had said to her in 14 months. I'm sorry, she said. Do not be. My point is that I have something to prove, and proving it requires evidence that cannot be dismissed as paranoia. You are part of that evidence now, whether you want it to be or not. He closed the folder. I'm giving you a choice. You can leave Shanghai tonight. My family will provide a new identity, a new location, enough money to start over. Or you can stay and help me build a case that even my brother cannot ignore. And Savannah? If you stay, she will try to reach you. She cannot afford a witness who can testify to what happened in that stairwell. She will send more men. She will find leverage. She will make your life impossible until she has silenced you, or broken you, or both. Rose thought about the trailer in Oakland, the thin walls, the windows that rattled with every passing train. She thought about the years she had spent learning to sleep through anything, to survive anything, to keep going when every reasonable calculation said she should stop. "What do you need from me?" Ildeok Pi looked at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression, almost imperceptible, like a door opening a crack. "Time," he said. "I need you to stay until I can walk out of this building on my own." That became the pattern over the next several days. He came to her apartment every morning at 8. He stayed until noon. They worked through the files together, Rose reading the shipping manifests while Ildeok explained the systems they were designed to exploit. She learned the names of ports: Busan, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Los Angeles, Vancouver, Oakland. She learned the weight of containers and the cost of delays and the precise dollar value of a falsified customs declaration. She also learned him. He drank his tea, black and too hot. He stood when he was thinking and sat when he was certain. He noticed everything, cataloged everything, remembered everything, and he delivered his observations in a voice so quiet that you had to lean forward to hear him. He never raised his voice. He never needed to. The precision of his attention was its own form of authority. On the 4th day, she caught him holding the edge of the table with both hands, his knuckles white, his breathing too controlled. "Sit down," she said. "I am fine. You're 17 days post-stabbing and you've been standing for 3 hours. Sit down." He sat. He did not look at her. The silence stretched for almost a full minute before he spoke. "You notice things other people let pass." "It's the job." "No." He turned to face her, and there was something raw in his expression, something he had not meant to show. "It is you. It is how you survived the trailer and the night shifts and the man who promised you a partnership and married someone else. You pay attention because no one else was ever paying attention to you." Rose did not answer. She could not. "I have read your file," he said quietly. "But I did not understand you until now." On the 6th day, news arrived from Seoul. The man in the dark suit, whose name Rose had learned was Kim, appeared at her door at 7 in the morning with a tablet in his hand and a tension in his shoulders that told her everything before he spoke. Savannah moved last night. She had 2 nurses from the 7th floor detained for questioning by hospital security. They were held for 4 hours before anyone realized the detainment order was falsified. "Which nurses?" "The ones you worked with most often. The ones who might know where you were sent." Rose felt the cold settle deeper. Did they talk? They did not know anything to talk about. But Savannah was not looking for information. She was sending a message. Kim set the tablet on the table. "She wants you to know she can reach anyone you have ever worked with, anyone you have ever cared about. She wants you to know that your silence is not enough, that staying hidden is not enough, that the only way to stop her is to destroy her, and she does not believe you have the means to do it." The screen showed a photograph, Rose's nursing station on the 7th floor. Someone had left a single white flower on the desk where she used to sit. "Chrysanthemum," Ildeok said from behind her. She had not heard him enter. "In Korea, we use them for funerals." Rose stared at the photograph. The flower was centered precisely on the desk, placed there for maximum visibility. Placed there so that everyone who worked on that floor would see it and know what it meant. "She's not just threatening me," Rose said. "She's telling everyone who helped me that they're next." "Yes." Ildeok's voice was very quiet. "That is exactly what she is doing." Kim left. The door closed. Rose stood at the window and watched the Shanghai skyline until the light changed and the shadows shifted, and she could not feel anything except the weight of everything she had lost. Her job. Her apartment in Dongdaemun. Her colleagues who had tolerated her, and the routine that had kept her sane, and the distance she had maintained so carefully, because distance was safer than connection, and connection only led to being left. "You are thinking about leaving," Ildeok said. I'm thinking about how much easier this would be for everyone if I had never walked into that stairwell. Easier for whom? The nurses she detained, the staff on the 7th floor, you. Ildeok moved to stand beside her at the window. He did not touch her. He did not speak. He stood 3 feet away and let the silence hold them both. My grandmother used to say that the hardest debts to repay are the ones we did not ask to owe. His voice was barely above a whisper. She runs the family foundation in Busan, the legitimate side. The charities and the scholarships and the community programs that make the name mean something beyond shipping routes. She has her own people, her own sources. My brother thinks she is retired. He does not understand that she has never stopped watching. Why are you telling me this? Because Savannah underestimates her too. Everyone does. And that will matter when the time comes. He turned to look at her. In the afternoon light from the window, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the cost of the wound that was healing too slowly, the strain of standing upright when his body wanted nothing more than to rest. You stood outside my door for 14 seconds before you knocked this morning, he said. 11 the night before. You are deciding whether to leave. I already decided, 3 days ago. Then why are you still here? Because you asked me to stay until you could walk out of this building on your own, and you still can't. Something passed across his face. Not surprise, not gratitude. Something quieter and more complicated, like the recognition of a debt he had not expected anyone to honor. My grandmother wants to meet you, he said. She's coming to Shanghai in 4 days. She did not tell my brother. Why does she want to meet me? Ildeok Pi looked at her for a long moment. His dark eyes held hers with that same impossible clarity she remembered from the stairwell, from the 9 minutes when she had talked him through the blood loss and the shock and the fear. Because I asked her to, he said. And because she has been watching Savannah Spencer for longer than I have. She knows things that I do not. Things that my brother refused to hear. And she believes you are the one who will finally make them listen. He turned and walked toward the door. His movement was still careful, still deliberate, still the movement of a man who knew exactly how much his body could bear. At the threshold, he paused. 4 days, he said. Stay that long, then decide. The door closed behind him. Rose stood at the window and watched the light change over Shanghai. She thought about the flower on her desk in Seoul, the nurses who had been detained, the life she had built from nothing and lost in a single night because she had walked into a stairwell and refused to let a stranger die. She thought about Ildeok Pi and his grandmother in Busan and the things he had trusted her with that he had never trusted anyone else. 4 days. She would stay. The grandmother arrived on the 4th day, exactly as Ildeok had said she would. She was smaller than Rose expected. 73 years old, barely 5 feet tall, dressed in a gray silk jacket that cost more than everything Rose owned combined. Her name was Pai Yuna, and she walked into the serviced apartment at 9 in the morning with 2 assistants who stayed by the door and a folder of her own that she set on the table beside Ildeok's. You are the nurse, she said in English. Her accent was precise, educated, the English of someone who had learned it from tutors rather than necessity. The one who talked to my grandson about freight trains while he was bleeding to death in a stairwell. Yes. Why? Rose did not hesitate. Because I read somewhere that voices anchor the dying to the living, and because I did not know what else to do. Pi Yuna studied her for a long moment. Her eyes were dark, like Ildeok's, but there was something sharper in them. Something that had been watching and calculating for decades longer than either of them had been alive. My grandson tells me you have decided to stay. I have. He also tells me that Savannah Spencer left a funeral flower on your desk in Seoul, that she detained your colleagues, that she's attempting to break you through isolation and fear. That's accurate. And yet you are still here. Pai Yuna sat down at the table without being invited. Her movement was deliberate, unhurried, the movement of someone who had never needed to rush because the world had always waited for her. "Tell me why." Rose thought about the question. She thought about all the answers she could give, the ones that would sound noble or brave or principled. She thought about the truth. Because I spent 14 months in Seoul being invisible, doing my job, filing incident reports, noticing things that other people let pass and never being thanked for it. And then I walked into a stairwell and saved someone's life, and suddenly I exist to people who want me dead. She met Pai Yuna's eyes. "I'm tired of being invisible. I am tired of surviving. I want to matter for something other than what I can endure." The silence that followed was absolute. Then Pai Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it transformed her face. "Good," she said. "That is the correct answer." She opened her folder. Inside were documents Rose had never seen. Bank records, communications. A timeline that stretched back not 14 months, but 7 years. To transactions and meetings and patterns that predated Savannah Spencer's involvement with the Pi family entirely. "My grandson noticed the discrepancy 7 months ago," Pai Yuna said. "He believed he was the first. He was not. I have been watching Savannah Spencer since the day she first approached my family with a proposal for expanded shipping routes through the American West Coast. I knew what she was before my son welcomed her into our operations. I told him. He did not listen. Men rarely do. Why didn't you stop her yourself?" "Because I'm retired." Pai Yuna's voice was dry. "Because my authority is limited to the foundation, the charities, the scholarships. Because my son believes I am a relic, and my eldest grandson believes I am sentimental. And my youngest grandson, the one you saved, is the only one who has ever asked me what I know instead of telling me what I should think." Ildeok had entered the room while his grandmother was speaking. He stood by the window, watching, silent. His face showed nothing, but Rose had learned to read the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself when he was paying attention to everything at once. "I have something else," Rose said. Both of them looked at her. She had not planned to say it. She had not planned to reveal the part of herself that she had buried so deeply she sometimes forgot it existed. But Pai Yuna had asked why she stayed, and the truth was more complicated than endurance. "Before I was a nurse, before I was an occupational therapist, I was an investigative journalist. I worked for a paper in Oakland. I exposed a media mogul who was laundering money through local charities. He had me blacklisted. I could not get work anywhere in the industry. I reinvented myself because I had no other choice." Pai Yuna's expression did not change. And I still have sources. People who owe me. People who remember what I did and what it cost me. Rose reached into her bag and pulled out a single sheet of paper. 3 days ago, I made a call. Yesterday morning, I received this. She placed the paper on the table. It was a wire transfer confirmation. $47 million moved through a series of shell companies that traced back to an account in the Cayman Islands. The account was registered to a trust. The trust was controlled by Savannah Spencer. "My source works at the bank that processed the original transfer," Rose said. "She kept a copy because she knew something was wrong and no one would listen. She has been waiting 6 years for someone to ask." Pai Yuna picked up the paper. She read it slowly, carefully, her eyes tracking every line. When she looked up, something had changed in her expression. "This is the document my grandson could not find. The one that proves the money did not disappear into operational costs, but was diverted deliberately." She set the paper down. "With this, even my son cannot dismiss the evidence as paranoia." "What happens now?" "Now," Pai Yuna said, "we give Savannah Spencer a choice." The meeting took place that afternoon in a conference room on the top floor of the Pi family's Shanghai office. Savannah arrived at 3 with 2 lawyers and an expression of careful neutrality. She wore white, immaculate, expensive. She looked at Rose the way you look at furniture that has been rearranged without permission. "I was not aware this was a negotiation," Savannah said. "It is not." Pi sat at the head of the table. Ildeok stood behind her. Rose sat to her left, the wire transfer confirmation in front of her. "It is an accounting." What followed was the quietest destruction Rose had ever witnessed. Pi did not raise her voice. She did not accuse. She simply recited. Dates. Amounts. Account numbers. The precise dollar value of every falsified manifest, every diverted shipment, every payment that had been logged as a loss and deposited into Savannah's private accounts. She named the ports, Busan, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Los Angeles, Vancouver, Oakland. She named the years, 7 of them. She named the total, not 40 million, but 47 million. The additional 7 million skimmed so gradually that no one had noticed until now. Savannah's lawyer stopped taking notes after the first 3 minutes. There was nothing to argue. The evidence was complete. When Pi finished, the silence in the room was absolute. "You have 2 options," Pi said. "The first is that we file formal charges through the proper legal channels. The shipping authorities in 6 countries. The banking regulators in 4. The criminal courts in Korea, where my family has significant influence. This process will take years. It will destroy your reputation, your business relationships, and your freedom. And the second? You return what you stole. You sign a confession that will be held in trust and released only if you ever approach my family or anyone connected to us again. You leave Asia and do not return." Savannah's composure cracked, just slightly. Her eyes moved to Ildeok, then to Rose, then back to Pi. "This is not your decision to make. Your son runs this family. Your grandson is the heir. You are retired." "I was retired." Pi voice did not change. "My grandson asked me to stop being retired. I agreed." Savannah turned to Rose. "And you? The nurse? The journalist? The woman who saved a man she should have let die." Her voice was sharp now, the pleasantness stripped away. "You could have walked away. You could have taken the new identity and the money and disappeared. Why didn't you?" Rose thought about the question. She thought about all the ways she could answer it, the revenge she could take, the power she could claim. She thought about the flower on her desk in Seoul and the nurses who had been detained and the 14 months she had spent being invisible. "Because I wanted justice," she said. "Not rescue, not revenge. Justice. Through proper channels, with evidence that could not be dismissed." She looked at Savannah directly. "I'm not going to destroy you. I'm going to let the system do its job. And you are going to live with the knowledge that a nurse from Oakland, a woman you dismissed as a loose end, is the one who brought you the document you could not hide from." Savannah did not answer. She signed the confession 47 minutes later. 3 weeks later, Rose stood outside his door in Busan. She counted to 14 without meaning to. Old habit. The door opened before she could knock. 11 seconds yesterday, Ildeok said. 7 the day before. 3 this morning. He stepped back to let her in. "You are deciding faster." "I already decided, 3 weeks ago." His apartment overlooked the harbor. She could see the cargo ships in the distance, the containers stacked like building blocks, the machinery of the empire his family had built. He moved without the careful deliberation she remembered from Shanghai. The wound had healed. The exhaustion had lifted. He stood straighter now, and when he turned to face her, there was something in his expression she had not seen before. Peace, maybe. Or the closest thing to it that a man like him could carry. "My grandmother offered you a position with the foundation," he said. "You declined." I told her I needed to figure out what I wanted first. And have you? Rose walked to the window. The harbor light was golden in the late afternoon, catching the water in ways that reminded her of nothing she had ever known in Oakland. No freight trains here, no rattling windows, no thin walls and night shifts and the sound of wheels on rails. I want to matter, she said, not for what I can endure, for what I choose. She felt him move closer, not touching, not speaking, just present. The way he had been present in Shanghai when she stood at the window and watched the light change and thought about everything she had lost. You already matter, he said quietly. You mattered in the stairwell. You mattered in the conference room. You mattered every time you filed an incident report that no one thanked you for. That's not the same. No. He was beside her now, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. It is not. But I am asking you to stay anyway. Not because I need a witness. Not because you are useful. Because I have spent 29 years being watched by people who do not see me, and you are the first person who has ever looked. Rose turned to face him. His dark eyes held hers with that same impossible clarity she remembered from the stairwell, from the 9 minutes when she had talked him through the blood loss and the shock and the fear. She had learned that survival was not enough. She had learned that justice was quieter than revenge and harder to hold on to. She had learned that the people who mattered most were the ones who stayed when staying cost them something. She had learned that 14 seconds was too long to stand outside a door when the person inside was already waiting. I'll stay, she said. He reached for her hand. His fingers found hers with careful precision, the way he did everything, and the touch was warm and certain and exactly enough. Outside, the cargo ships moved through the harbor toward ports she could name now. Busan, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Los Angeles, Vancouver, Oakland. She was not invisible anymore. If this story meant something to you, drop a comment and tell me the exact moment you knew Rose would stay. If you are new here, subscribe and turn on notifications, and I promise the next story will be even harder to walk away from. Thank you for watching until the very end. I will see you in the next one.